Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett just dropped a bombshell on live TV, exposing Donald Trump's darkest secrets in a way nobody saw coming. The room erupted as she unleashed receipts that left even his biggest defenders speechless. But what she revealed in the final moments? It's so shocking. You'll have to see it to believe it. Watch till the end. You won't regret it. The air in the CNN studio was thick with tension as the cameras rolled. The primetime special had been hyped for days. Trump versus the truth, a live accountability debate. And the nation was glued to their screens. On one side of the sleek, glass-paneled set sat Donald Trump, his trademark red tie perfectly knotted, his expression one of practiced defiance. He leaned back in his chair, exuding the same unshakable confidence that had carried him through decades of scandals. To the untrained eye, he looked invincible. Across from him, Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett adjusted her microphone, her sharp gaze never leaving Trump's face. She had spent weeks preparing for this moment, digging through documents, verifying sources, rehearsing every possible deflection he might throw her way. The media had framed this as a David and Goliath battle, but Jasmine wasn't here to play games. She was here to expose. The moderator, a seasoned journalist known for keeping debates civil, opened with a soft question about political integrity. Trump seized the opportunity, launching into his usual tirade about fake news and witch hunts, his voice rising in that familiar combative tone. The studio audience, a mix of supporters and skeptics, reacted on cue, some nodding, others shifting uncomfortably. But Jasmine didn't interrupt. She let him talk, let him dig in. Then when he paused to take a breath, she struck. "You've spent years accusing everyone else of corruption, Mr. Trump," she said, her voice calm but razor sharp. "But the American people deserve to hear your truth. Not the version you spin on Truth Social, not the excuses your lawyers craft, the real story." Trump's smirk faltered for half a second before he waved a hand dismissively. "Oh, here we go. Another Democrat with more nonsense." Jasmine didn't blink. She reached for a folder beside her, the movement deliberate. "No, sir. This isn't about politics. This is about evidence." The room seemed to hold its breath. The cameras zoomed in, and with that, the trap was set. The smirk on Trump's face didn't fade. Not yet. But something shifted behind his eyes as Jasmine Crockett leveled her gaze at him. The studio lights felt hotter, the air heavier. The moderator, sensing the shift, opened his mouth to intervene. But Jasmine was already speaking, her voice slicing through the tension like a blade. "Mr. Trump," she began, her tone measured but laced with steel, "you've spent your entire career accusing others of dishonesty. You called Hillary Clinton a criminal. You called Joe Biden corrupt. You've labeled judges, journalists, even your former allies as liars and traitors. But here's what I want to know." She paused just long enough to let the weight of the moment settle. "When will you be held to the same standard?" A murmur rippled through the audience. Trump's jaw tightened, but he forced a chuckle. "Oh, please, you people have been trying to hold me accountable for 8 years. It's pathetic." Jasmine didn't flinch. "Then this should be easy for you. Let's start with something simple." She lifted a single sheet of paper, holding it up so the cameras could see. "This is a sworn deposition from Alan Weisselberg, your former CFO. He testified under oath that you approved illegal hush money payments, not just to Stormy Daniels, but to multiple women, and then falsified business records to cover it up." Trump's face darkened. "Weisselberg is a convicted liar." "He was your liar," Jasmine shot back, "for decades. And under oath, he swore you directed him to commit felony fraud. So which is it? Was he lying then, or is he lying now?" The audience erupted. The moderator tried to regain control, but Trump, nostrils flaring, leaned forward. "This is a disgrace. You're just regurgitating old garbage because you can't beat me at the polls." Jasmine smiled, cold, deliberate. "Old garbage? Then explain this." With a flick of her wrist, she signaled the control room. The studio screens flashed to life, displaying a series of bank transfers, dates, amounts, routing numbers. "These are your financial records, Mr. Trump, subpoenaed, authenticated, and unsealed. They show 11 separate payments, totaling over $1.3 million, funneled through shell companies to women who signed NDAs about their relationships with you, all while you were running for president." Trump's face went rigid. "Fake. Fake documents. They're from the Manhattan DA's office, Jasmine said flatly, and they match the testimony of your bookkeepers. So tell me, which part is fake? For the first time all night, Trump didn't have a comeback. The silence was deafening. Jasmine pressed on. You didn't just lie to the public. You lied under oath. That's perjury. That's prison time. The room was electric. The audience gasped. Even the moderator looked stunned. And Trump? For the first time in his life, he looked cornered. The air in the studio was charged. The silence so thick you could hear the hum of the overhead lights. Trump's face had lost its usual bluster, just for a split second. But it was enough. The audience, the producers, the millions watching at home all saw it. The flicker of panic. Jasmine Crockett didn't let up. She reached into the folder again, this time pulling out a single sheet, thicker than paper, almost cardstock. A certified court document. You called these records fake, Mr. Trump, she said, her voice low but carrying the weight of a judge's gavel. But this is a signed affidavit from the CFO of Deutsche Bank's private wealth division. It confirms you guaranteed loans with fraudulent valuations, properties inflated by nearly 300% to secure financing. That's not just lying, that's bank fraud. Trump's hands clenched on the armrests of his chair. Deutsche Bank is full of Democrat donors. Who you choose to do business with, Jasmine cut in. For decades. And that's not even the damning part. She turned to the screen behind her, where a new document appeared. A spreadsheet marked confidential in bold red letters. This is a ledger from the Trump Organization's internal accounting system. It shows repeated payments, $12 million over 4 years, to a company registered in the Cayman Islands. A company with no employees, no office, and one client. You. A beat, then. Care to explain what they were for? Trump's face flushed. That's every billionaire uses tax strategies. Tax strategies? Jasmine's laugh was sharp. The IRS calls it tax evasion. And this? She tapped another line item. $750,000 labeled legal consulting, paid to a firm that doesn't exist, 2 weeks before you fired James Comey. Funny timing. The audience gasped. Someone in the back row whispered, "Oh my God." Jasmine leaned in. You want to talk witch hunts? These are your documents, your signatures, your crimes. Trump opened his mouth, but no sound came out. For once, the man who always had a comeback was speechless. And the cameras caught every second of it. The studio lights seemed to grow brighter, hotter, as if the truth itself was burning through the carefully constructed facade. Trump's knuckles were white where they gripped the armrest, his famous combative energy momentarily frozen. The audience sat in stunned silence, waiting, needing, to see how he would worm his way out of this one. But Jasmine Crockett wasn't done. You think this is just about money? She said, her voice dropping to something quieter, darker. Let's talk about the things no checkbook can cover. With a nod to the control room, the screens behind her switched to a black and white security still. A hotel hallway, a timestamp from 2006. A familiar figure in an unmistakable suit disappeared into a suite. Then another image. A woman, face blurred but posture rigid with distress, leaving the same room hours later. This woman signed an NDA. She was paid. She was silenced, Jasmine said. But NDAs don't cover everything. She pressed play on an audio file. Static crackled, then a voice, his voice, filled the room. Look, just get her out of here. And if she talks, remind her who she's dealing with. I've got guys who can handle it. A beat, then a second voice, a lawyer's, responded. We can't threaten her, sir. That's a crime. Trump's reply was ice cold. Who said anything about threats? Just make the problem go away. The clip ended. The room was dead silent. Jasmine let the moment hang before speaking again. That recording was turned over by a former Trump Organization employee, under oath. And before you call it fake, she held up a forensic authentication report from an independent audio lab. It's been verified. That's your voice. Those are your words. Trump finally found his voice, but it was thinner now, frayed at the edges. This is illegal. You can't just... What's illegal, Jasmine snapped, is witness intimidation. What's illegal is obstruction. And this? She gestured to the screen, now frozen on his face from the security still. This is a pattern. The audience erupted. Someone shouted, "Lock him up!" from the back. The moderator, pale-faced, struggled to regain control as Trump half rose from his seat, sputtering denials that no one could hear over the noise. But Jasmine wasn't finished. "You built an empire on bullying and lies," she said, her voice cutting through the chaos. "But tonight, the truth wins." And for the first time in his life, Donald Trump had nothing left to say. Jasmine let the uproar in the studio swell for a long moment before raising her hand, commanding silence. The audience quieted, but the air remained charged. Everyone could feel what was coming next. "But this isn't just about documents or bank records or even crimes," she said, her voice softer now, threaded with something deeper, something like grief. "It's about the people you've hurt, the lives you've destroyed." She turned toward the side entrance where a woman stood in the shadows. The cameras caught her hesitant step forward, the way her hands trembled slightly before she straightened her shoulders. The audience recognized her instantly. Jessica Drake, one of the women who had accused Trump of sexual misconduct years earlier. The story had been buried under legal threats and public ridicule, until now. Jessica took the seat beside Jasmine, her eyes glistening but her voice steady. "I was warned never to speak about what happened," she began. "I was told no one would believe me. I was sued for breaking an NDA. I signed under duress." She looked directly at Trump, who had gone unnaturally still. "But I'm done being afraid of you." Jasmine placed a hand on Jessica's arm, then turned back to Trump. "You silenced her with money and lawyers, but money doesn't erase trauma, and NDAs don't erase truth." Then came the second guest, a man in a crisp suit, introduced as a former Trump Organization executive. "I oversaw some of those consulting payments," he said, jaw tight. "I was told to falsify records. When I objected, I was fired and threatened with a lawsuit if I talked." Trump's face twisted. "You're a disgrace. A liar." The man didn't flinch. "I have emails, I have receipts. And now," he said, "I have immunity from the DA's office." The audience gasped. Jasmine leaned forward. "This is what accountability looks like, Mr. Trump. Real people, real consequences. No amount of bullying can shut them up now." The silence that followed was deafening. Even the moderator sat frozen, staring at Trump as the weight of the moment pressed down. And then, a single, choked sob from the audience. A woman in the front row, face streaked with tears, whispered, "Finally." It was over, and for the first time in his life, Donald Trump had nowhere left to run. Jasmine let the raw emotion hang in the air for a long, loaded moment before reaching into her folder one final time. The audience leaned forward unconsciously, sensing the kill shot was coming. Even the cameramen seemed to hold their breath as she produced a single sheet of paper, stamped with the seal of the U.S. Treasury Department. "You thought we wouldn't find this, didn't you?" she said, her voice dropping to a prosecutor's deadly calm. "While you were in the Oval Office, you secretly received $22 million through a shell company registered to your son-in-law, from a sanctioned Russian oligarch. The same oligarch your administration later granted an exemption to." Trump's face went slack. That's a complete fabrication." "Certified by FinCEN," Jasmine cut him off, holding up the document so the cameras could zoom in on the official seal. "The transaction occurred 3 days after you unilaterally lifted sanctions on Deripaska's aluminum company. Your own Treasury staff objected in writing. I have those memos too." The studio erupted. The moderator's mouth fell open. Behind Trump, one of his aides visibly paled. Jasmine wasn't finished. "But here's what makes this treason," she continued, tapping the document. "This payment wasn't just for past favors. It was a down payment." She signaled the control room again. The screen split. On one side, the financial records. On the other hand, a transcript from a previously classified FBI counterintelligence report. Highlighted passages described a Moscow hotel project Trump had pursued throughout his presidency, even as he publicly claimed no business dealings with Russia. "You sold out this country," Jasmine said, each word dripping with contempt. "You compromised national security. You took bribes from foreign adversaries while sitting in the Oval Office. That's not politics. That's not business. That's treason. Trump finally found his voice. Those are lies, fake documents. Then sue me, Jasmine challenged, staring him down. Right now, on live television. I'll waive all immunity, because here's what I know. You won't, because everything I just showed you is verifiable. And you know what happens when real investigators follow this paper trail. For the first time all night, genuine fear flickered across Trump's face. The bluster was gone. The deflection tactics failed. The audience watched in stunned silence as the reality set in. They were witnessing something unprecedented. A former president, cornered by the truth. The studio lights burned hotter than ever as the weight of Jasmine's revelations settled over the room. Trump sat frozen, his usual arsenal of deflections and denials failing him for the first time in his public life. The air itself seemed charged with electricity, every person in the audience holding their breath as history unfolded before them. Jasmine Crockett rose from her seat slowly, deliberately, the documents clutched in her hand like a prosecutor's closing argument. For years, she began, her voice resonating with quiet fury. You've operated above the law. You've bullied, bribed, and lied your way through every scandal. But this ends tonight. She turned to face the cameras directly, speaking now to the millions watching at home. What you've just witnessed isn't speculation. It's not partisan politics. These are crimes, documented, corroborated, and waiting for justice. Behind her, the screen displayed a montage of the night's evidence. The financial records, the authenticated recordings, the sworn testimonies. A ticking counter showed the number of times Trump had said fake news during the broadcast, 27, juxtaposed with verified facts, 48. The moderator finally found his voice. Mr. President, do you have any response to these allegations? Trump opened his mouth, but nothing came out. His eyes darted to his aides off stage, then to the exit. For a man who built his reputation on never backing down, the unthinkable happened. He visibly shrank in his seat. Jasmine delivered the final blow without raising her voice. The American people see you now, Donald. Not the persona, not the performance. The real you. A fraud, a criminal, a traitor to his oath. The audience erupted in a standing ovation that shook the studio. Producers in the control room later said the audio levels peaked higher than any broadcast in CNN history. On social media, the hashtag #TrumpExposed trended globally within 90 seconds. As security moved in to escort a shell-shocked Trump out, Jasmine turned for one last comment to the cameras. This isn't victory, it's accountability. And to every person who suffered under this man's corruption, your country just heard you. The broadcast cut to black amid the chaos, but the reckoning had only just begun. In living rooms across America, in the halls of Congress, in the offices of the Justice Department, the world had changed, and there would be no going back.